Hi everyone, Sarah Pacaro. Today what we're going to get into in this video are the signs, symptoms, and impact of emotional neglect. Now, neglect can come from many different places, many different sources and resources, and it shows up time and time again in the relationship that you have with yourself and in the relationship that you have with others. It most significantly impacts the decisions, the choices that you make in your own life when it comes to this dynamic that you have with others. Do you stand up for yourself, or are you a jellyfish or a doormat? Do you consider yourself someone who is strong and independent? Yet there are moments and times where you feel like you're spineless and you know that others are walking all over you, and it feels difficult and near impossible to set a boundary without feeling guilt, without feeling shame, without feeling some sort of remorse or going through some sort of processing period after where you just break down and you go back to one of your old habits and coping mechanisms and patterns. Maybe it's sleeping all day, maybe it's eating or drinking those feelings away. Emotional neglect leaves a very big hole and a very big void within you. It feels like this dark, vast, empty pit, and the choices, actions, habits that you have are all in an unconscious effort to fill that inner void that you feel. And many, many people do it through relationships, staying in toxic and unhealthy relationships, feeling unable to break free from those, feeling guilt, feeling that they constantly get sucked back into those. Many people do it with food, with choice of substances that they use, with the things that they drink, with the actions that they have. They're going out and doing things that they know are bad for them. Maybe they're obsessively shopping, compulsively shopping, or scrolling online, even though they know that they don't have the money for that. But it seems to get them that quick fix, but it leaves them crashing down afterwards, and maybe even into deeper financial debt. And the depths of emotional neglect are vast, and the ways that it impacts us on every level, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. So we're going to go over 7 signs today that you have experienced emotional neglect. And this can be in any relationship. This can be in adult relationships. This is where you'll see these things within yourself, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's one pinpointed relationship that caused this. It could be, but it could be a number of relationships that you've had that left you feeling emotionally neglected, and that your emotional needs took a back seat, didn't matter, and were never safe to be expressed. So let's get into the 7 signs of emotional neglect that you still have, those that you're experiencing that inner void, that inner darkness and depthness, that inner hole that you're now filling with things outside of you in an effort to try to feel whole. I say that a lot, right? That HOLE is all to do with you wanting to feel WHOLE. And it's that silent letter, and it's that silent killer as well. I talk a lot about childhood emotional neglect, and this video doesn't specifically address that, but as an adult or as someone who's no longer a child and experiencing these symptoms and these signs, it may be due to that. It may be due to an adult relationship that you had, but you're desiring to feel whole, WHOLE, but you're really feeling this hole, this dark depth, vastness, and you're filling that with all those other things in an effort to fill that. So it's really what we call the emotional killer, the silent killer, right? It's the thing that leaves those invisible wounds and scars that we can't heal, that we can't feel, with worksheets, with videos. And I know I share a lot about this through video, but that doesn't heal those inner emotional wounds. To truly transform and have a complete breakthrough from that, you've got to connect with someone, myself, or anyone else who truly is trained in getting you to that connection, that place within your unconscious mind that is feeling these signs and symptoms that we're going to go through today. And you can't just get through it with worksheets that'll allow you to scratch the surface of this, maybe get into the hole a little bit. But once you're in that hole, your body will do something to get you out of that hole, because it sees just how deep and just how dark it is. And truly connecting with your own unconscious mind is the way out, is the way to fill that hole internally and feel that it's safe, that you no longer need to use or do those things that you were using and doing outside of you to try and fill that inner void. So let's get into the 7 signs and symptoms of emotional neglect. The first one is the most common one, was one we were just going over, is that feeling of emptiness, that feeling of inner emptiness. And emptiness is generally experienced as that feeling, as that discomfort or emotional numbness. And you experience this as a general sense that you're missing something, that there's something disconnected, that there's something not connected within you. And this feeling and this perception and this stance in your life that you're on the outside and you're looking in, that you're the observer and life is happening to you. And there's nothing you can do about it. And it's not happening to you in a good way. Life is happening to you. And you're powerless, you're helpless, you're hopeless because you're on the outside looking in, and therefore you're disconnected. You have no power. You have no ability to truly make a difference in your life or do anything to make it better or improve it or stop those things that are happening from happening. And many clients that I work with experience the physicalness of this. They experience it as a physical emptiness in their chest or their belly, a physical emptiness in their throat, in their gut. There's different places and ways that the body holds on to this physical emptiness, but it's often felt physically, internally. Emotional neglect is a major cause of feelings of emptiness. And without the emotional connection that we needed when we were younger, growing up with our parents, or without that emotional connection that we had as adults with our partners, within our community, you can be left with this deep, vast, wide, dark feeling of emptiness inside of you that you can feel physically. And that's where transformational healing makes the biggest, most rapid change and impact in your life, because you make those internal unconscious connections so that you don't have to continue to just grab onto anything outside of you in an effort to feel that you're not going to drown. So the second sign of emotional emptiness or neglect, or emotional neglect, is opposite to what most people consider themselves who've experienced emotional neglect. That's that codependency. The pendulum swings the other way and they become counter dependents. They become anti-dependents. They become what I call, and I go through my masterclass, the superhero me. It's, I don't need anybody. And they have this deep fear of being dependent on anyone else because they've been so emotionally hurt and traumatized in the past when they were dependent on other people. And now they've swung the other way. And there's this deep void and fear of being dependent on other people. And they've got this, I don't need anyone. Leave me alone. I've got this. I can do this attitude. I can do it myself. So counter-dependent people will go to great lengths to avoid appearing or feeling needy, but we all need connection. We all desire it. We all need it in order to survive. But people who've experienced deep emotional neglect no longer trust other people. They often don't trust themselves because in the past they have let other people in, and now they don't feel like they can trust themselves to make good decisions, healthy decisions on who to have connections and relationships with. So they will do anything and everything to avoid asking for help, even at their own expense. They can feel it and know it, and they want it and need it, but just completely fear it because of how bad it hurt in the past when they didn't get it, when they needed it most. Another sign of emotional neglect is self-appraisal being completely unrealistic. We've got these expectations of ourselves that are so high that they're almost impossible to attain or achieve. And even when we do even get close to them, It's like that bar automatically gets moved up another notch without us needing to even think about it or do anything about it. So our self-appraisal is always that we're falling short of hitting that bar, is always that we're never making it. It's never good enough. We're never satisfied. We're never fulfilled because of this unrealistic self-appraisal. So people who were emotionally neglected in relationships really tend to struggle with low self-esteem because you're always falling short of hitting that bar. You're always beating yourself up and thinking there's something about me that's just not ever going to be better, not ever going to be fixed, not ever going to change. And that really weighs heavily. And as it weighs on you, it pushes your self-esteem, your self-trust, your self-worth, your self-confidence down lower and lower and lower. And the lower you go, the more you go towards reaching towards those things outside of you to try and fill that inner void that you feel. So people who experience this often view themselves in a very, very negative way, in a very jaded, in a very skewed way. They're not people who look at themselves and think that they're anything special or anything that anyone should be excited about. They often view themselves as there but not there, and feel really disconnected in their relationships and feel like that other people don't know the real them. And if they did know the real them, they wouldn't like them. So they're okay with just kind of being the way that they are because of this unrealistic self-appraisal. They downplay their strengths and they upplay their weaknesses. And they do this to try and motivate them to keep going when it's hard and when it's tough and to just push through. So they downplay their strengths and they exaggerate their weaknesses. And they think, well, if I just exaggerate my weaknesses, that'll motivate and inspire me to keep going. But every time they keep going, they keep missing that invisible internal bar that they've set that they're always falling short of. And because your self concept is developed in childhood and throughout adolescence and adulthood, parents and initial caregivers that are providing that feedback and validation, not just through words, but also through nonverbal communication, through their facial expression, through their tone of voice, that's completely off. Now they're hypersensitive to that. Now people who've gone through emotional neglect in their past really pick up on that. And they take it all personally. They take everything personally, and it's something that continues to degrade their self-esteem because that self-concept that was developed in childhood wasn't a healthy one, wasn't a positive one. It was one where they, even then, because of those relationships that neglected emotional connection, they beat themselves up and they just see their weaknesses, and it's almost impossible to see any positives or strengths within themselves. So the next one, all of this leads to guilt and shame, feelings of guilt and shame. And there are so many feelings of guilt and shame when it comes to doing the things that you know you need to do, like setting healthy boundaries. You know you need to do that, especially with people who take advantage of you, who use you. You need healthy boundaries, but there's so much guilt and shame around that. There's guilt and shame for even existing and feeling of what's the point of all this? Nobody cares. Nobody understands me. Nobody gets me. And there's feelings of guilt and shame that you must have done something to feel that way, and a belief that you deserve to feel that way. And so every time you feel that guilt and shame, that internally and unconsciously gets reinforced as there you go. That's that feeling that you deserve to feel. Yet it's the very feeling that you want to be free from and feel that if you're not, you can't go on. And many, many emotionally neglected adults received that message from their initial caregivers and parents and those first relationships that their parents, or sorry, that their feelings were excessive, were over the top, that their feelings were extreme, and that their feelings were wrong. So internally, unconsciously, they have developed this belief that those people are right and my feelings are wrong. My feelings are too much. My feelings are too big. My feelings are excessive. My feelings and emotions are over the top. So now they try and minimize their expression of those feelings so that they can hopefully minimize the feelings of guilt and shame that they feel when they express their emotions and feelings. So as adults in all sorts of settings and all of their relationships, they often feel guilty and feel ashamed for even having feelings, and will go to great lengths to make any effort to hide those emotions and feelings from other people or not have them at all. And that's what I call the run and numb. And people who've experienced emotional neglect will run and numb. And I talk about that in even greater detail in my free training and masterclass. So you can learn more about transforming your past pain to present power. But that's what I call run and numb, because you're running from those feelings and emotions in an effort to not have them at all, because you feel so bad and so guilty and so full of shame for having emotions at all, and you want to minimize them. So you do by reaching for something outside of you. That's what I call the bottler stuffer archetype as well. And that leads into the next one, which is self-blame and self-directed anger. You're going to notice a lot of these begin with self, because we take it on ourselves. This self-blame, we don't blame them, but we are so quick and so easy to blame ourselves. So it becomes self-blame and self-directed anger. Yes, there's anger directed towards that emotional abuser, but we know the moment that that emotion gets expressed, it's going to increase, and you don't want the feeling of increased anger. You want to minimize it. So when that anger deflects off them, it comes back to you, and it's self-directed anger. So that shame, taken another step further, becomes that self-directed anger and blame. And as a result of those things and your feelings and your emotions, you, as someone who's experienced emotional neglect in relationships, often use addictions and self-harm as release, because it temporarily and momentarily does provide you what you're looking for, which is a release. And that's where transformational healing comes in. You get that breakthrough, that transformation, and that release without more self-help books, medications, or without years of therapy, because that's what you're looking for. That's what you're seeking. But you can do it without those things that harm yourself, and release yourself from that self-blame, and release yourself from that self-directed anger, so that you can break free from becoming your worst abuser. And that's what it's all about. And you can't do that through a worksheet. I'm sorry. So many people are looking for more tools. You're not looking for more tools. You're looking for healing. So next sign and symptom is that you have a really, really, really difficult time nurturing yourself and nurturing others. It's almost as if you're in a relationship, you can hear about what someone else is going through, and you could care less. But you know that's not you. You want to be a caring person, a kind person, a loving, nurturing person. But if you're not giving that towards yourself, you could care less about really being there in that way for other people. But that may be the F you, what I call the fake fraud you. It's another archetype of the emotionally abused and neglected. You appear to be and you appear to care, but when that's not reciprocated and received on your end, sometimes it is reciprocated, but it's not received on your end because you've built up this wall and blocked it out, because that means letting them in and they could hurt you if you do that. So you keep them out. You build up a lot of resentment, a lot of frustration, and a lot of anger within that relationship. And then it becomes self-directed, and you have a really hard, difficult, almost impossible time at times nurturing and caring for yourself. But nurturance, compassion, kindness, empathy is that gas that fills your emotional tank. But your emotional tank is on zero, it's empty. And we receive that nurturing initially from our caregivers and from our parents. And that becomes a part of who we are. Our belief system stems from theirs and everything that they shared with us. And there may be some that we've rejected and say, no, now logically we understand that as an adult, but there's still some internal that haven't yet been processed, that are still those inner wounds that are wounding. And when you become an adult, you become able to provide nurturing for yourself and other people. And you know this logically, but people who've gone through emotionally neglectful relationships didn't internalize that nurturance the same way that other people did. And as a result, often feel extremely uncomfortable around other people expressing their emotions. They become really uncomfortable around other people crying or going through a difficult time, or they don't feel safe or comfortable crying in the presence of another person. They will hold back, they will stuff, they will bottle up their emotions and feelings because they don't feel safe to express them. And they may be very, very good at giving other people practical, logical, sound advice, but maybe not emotional support. And they say, well, this is what you should do. And they're very good at that, at solving problems for other people, but maybe not so good at providing emotional support. And find that they feel again that there's something wrong with them. And with all of that, there is a powerful, fast breakthrough. I call it transformational healing. It truly is using the power of your unconscious mind to break free from that so that you can get to that place where you no longer feel that you're sitting in a deficit, in a dark, vast void of darkness internally, and get to that place where you can express and feel safe and trust your emotions and trust your feelings and free yourself from the emotionally neglectful past and relationships and the ways that you're hurting and harming yourself and the ways that that's impacting all of the other relationships that you have today. So if you're interested in perhaps working one-to-one, I'd love to talk to you more about what that entails and what that looks like. Or perhaps you're ready to just take that next step into going through this journey on your own. We've got a powerful program for that as well. It's called Transforming Past Pain to Present Power, using rapid transformational therapy sessions and giving you all of the tools that you need to support yourself and guide yourself through that journey on your own. Both are available, and both you can find more information in the description below this video as well. So I hope you have found this video helpful, informational to you. Remember that worksheets don't heal you. It truly is connecting with that place within your own inner mind, within your unconscious mind, that is going to be the breakthrough that sets you free. So thank you guys for watching. Until next time, take care and be well.